Yo, what's up guys, the Insane Game Freak here to bring you another societal discussion. And this one is going to be about the group mentality. And this is actually inspired from a live stream I did, I think it was about a week ago. It's been probably about a week or 2 weeks that I did on a Otaku Symbol, aka Larry's stream. And it ended up becoming this conversation with like Uber Akari and Kayla and Anime Rick. And it was an interesting conversation that kind of led, because originally it started out as like conversating about how we used to act and how we were, and like we were pretty much reminiscing, and then it went into how our attitudes were at certain portions and how we were stuck in a group mentality and had to get out of the group mentality to realize we were on some bullshit. That's where this video comes from. So that will be, I'll probably put this actually as a response to that live stream, since that essentially is where it came from. I don't know, I know the second live stream cut off at a certain point, so I don't know if you guys got to see it or not, but if not, I'm pretty much going to give you the societal discussion version of it. Anyways, let's go! What the? This is from something. I don't fucking remember what this is from though. Okay, so the whole concept of the group mentality is essentially you have you and you have a group of people. Usually, you know, we have our group of friends, whether it's normal friends, co-workers, whatever. And in that group, you end up gaining or adopting the ideas of the person with the strongest will / charisma / influence on you. And what I mean by that is like, you have a group of friends, alright? Let's say you're the kind of person who's very like quiet and chill and everything, where you have a few friends who are a lot more loud and a lot more aggressive, and they essentially make their presence known. What ends up happening is whoever has the strongest will ends up kind of I don't think they're intentionally doing, but they kind of are, where they're kind of putting their will into you. And I'm going to make a reference to relating to this. It's going to be an old school One Piece reference that no one ever uses because it's a kick-ass reference and people need to use it more. Anyways, let's moving on. And the reference is if anyone remembers back during the Buggy arc where Nami had pretty much tricked Luffy and Buggy, in the sense that tricked Luffy into working with him even though she was just selling him out to get close to Buggy, and then tricking Buggy, making it seem like she used to be Luffy's boss and she's betraying her boss. That scene where he's like, alright, listen, you have to blow up Luffy if that's the case, you know, if you want to show your loyalty to me, you're going to have to blow up your old boss. And she's having this freaking paranoia moment because, Nami's that kind of character who talks a lot of game, but when it comes to actually backing up, at least in these types of situations, she's not going to kill a man, especially a man that she doesn't know that well, mind you. Remember, she met Luffy in that arc, so, yeah. And there's this really epic scene, this dialogue she and Luffy have, where he's like, your hands are trembling. And he's like, oh, well, of course, what do you think I am, some type of murderer? He's like, yeah, see, that's what happens. What happens when what? Because I'm not a pirate like you? He's like, no, that's what happens when you come at pirates with a half-ass resolve. And I was like, oh, Luffy spitting that truth knowledge, son. And I'm going to relate that to this, because essentially what it is the same kind of logic. Don't try to make friends or join kind of a group of friends with a half-ass resolve. Meaning if you have a weak will, your will lose to the person who has the strongest will. Meaning you'll end up adopting the ideas of said person and not even having a real justification for it, other than the justification the person gives you. And that's how I relate it. When it comes to the whole group mentality, that's why when you always see bad things happen in the news or on TV, or when you see a whole bunch of shit going down, it's always a group of people or one person a part of a group of people. And the problem with that whole idea of just adopting that group mentality is that you end up doing things and not having a real justification of your own for doing them. It's kind of like, oh, we shut up this dude or we beat up this chick, and you don't even fucking know why. You can't even come up with a reason for yourself. Why? Not even for anyone else. Yourself. It's just kind of like, because if your reason is because someone else said it was a good idea, or someone else said, pretty much if it was something that came out of someone else's mouth, that probably means you didn't think it, which kind of makes you go, damn, how weak am I? And that's the biggest thing. I mean, and the problem with the group mentality thing is people don't really warn you about that. That's not something you kind of hear in school a lot. Oh, be afraid. Don't try to make friends and not have a strong, sense of yourself yet, because if you do, you're probably going to end up falling in line with whoever's, presence is strongest. And it's just like, you're not really taught that, but that's something you kind of need to know, because you end up being more complacent towards things because it's falling in with the group. I mean, that's how it is. When it comes to a group of friends, you never want to be that weird guy who disagrees with every goddamn thing. Because then it's going to be like, because then you've alienated yourself just by having your own opinion. But people need to realize that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's something you need to do. If your opinion clashes with someone else's, do not adopt your opinion. Because people need to understand, friends are friends, but friends aren't supposed to agree on everything. So obviously it's not going to be this whole thing where it's like, oh, we should go rob a bank, or we should go beat up on this nerdy kid because he looks different. Not everyone's supposed to agree with that. Just saying. You know, if your morals are like, no, this is a bad idea, we're not doing this, and all you go is, sure, let's go, then, you know, that you're betraying yourself, and then you go home feeling like shit because you realize you just did something that you didn't fucking agree with. That's the whole issue with the group mentality. People get sucked in, and that's probably why a lot of people stay ignorant, because they're so stuck in. And the thing is, the group mentality is hard to get out of, because eventually, when you're listening to so many ideas for like a long period of time, they become your ideas, and you become this hollow individual who's really a really bullshit clone of the person you got the ideas from to begin with. Like, whoever your leader is in the group has essentially made a bullshit clone out of you, and now your worth is really lowered. And that's probably a lot of reasons why you have a lot of motherfuckers who do a lot of shit and it don't make any sense why they do that shit. Is because when they grew up, mind you, as I said, you're not going to get warned about this stuff. I mean, your parents don't tell you, don't make friends, because if you make friends, you might end up doing everything they do, obviously. I mean, yeah, they tell you to pick and choose your friends, but that doesn't really help. If you and your 3 friends hang out with another group of, maybe another group of like 2 friends, and their presence is stronger than yours is, and you don't have really a good perception of who you are yet as a person, they are going to, like, it's like Inception. It's just like they take over your mind and implant ideas and shit. That's what it is. That's what Inception is. I mean, that's the whole concept. They're incepting your mind. It's ridiculous. And, you know, everyone's gonna fall into it. It just depends on if you're able to get out of it. That's the biggest thing. It's not even the fact that you fall into it, because falling into it is kind of a learning experience. To me, that actually, in a sense, that it does help you identify yourself, because eventually you're gonna start. It's either going to annoy you to the point where you're kind of like, no, fuck this, you guys are on some bullshit, or you're just gonna become a mindless drone clone motherfucker. That's usually how it works. And I'll give you an example. This isn't necessarily anything I'm proud of, but this is what I used to do. This is what happened to me in high school. When I first got to high school, I went to a Catholic high school, which, as a black kid who doesn't really give a shit about religion, that worked out great. But usually, you know, there wasn't that many white kids. There weren't that many black kids, and most of the black kids were kind of like, not ghetto, but like still stereotypically black. And for those who can't tell, I'm not stereotypically black for the most part. I have my obviously African American quirks, but for the most part, I don't act stereotypically black. The thing is, so I ended up hanging out with a lot of white people. Nothing's wrong with hanging out with white people and any of that, but the thing is, white people's perception of black people up until that point, which would make sense because it's a private school, it costs money to go there, and they were raised Catholic. Their perception of black people is stereotypical black people. So in order to quote-unquote fit in, I pretty much followed up that stereotype. Like a dumbass, I followed up that stereotype, and I did that, I think, for like a year and a half or 2 years, and it took me a while before I realized, you know what, fuck this shit. Because I wasn't, the main reason why it didn't help me there, the reason why I kind of broke out of it was really just because I can't see myself, I wasn't enjoying myself at all. Like, I mean, there are multiple things that'll, you know, knock you out of it. But for me, it was just the fact that I wasn't enjoying myself and I was annoyed. And so, yeah, there's a lot of awkward moments from that moment on when I started being myself, because I used to say shit no one got. And then, but at the end of it, I ended up making friends with other people who understood where I was coming from, and we correlated. And I think actually the second most dangerous thing is if you're the person giving the influence and you don't realize you're giving the influence. Which is really hard to catch, by the way. I don't know how the hell, I've never been in that position myself, or I've never been aware that I've been in that position myself, so I don't know how that works, but it's always like that whole, you know, if you're the person giving off the presence and influence others, that's not something you really need to do either, but that's even harder to catch, because it's like, how are you supposed to know when you're influencing someone like that? I mean, that's just how it works. How are you supposed to catch it? And that's kind of my whole thing. It's like the group mentality is it's one of those things that helps you to, if you can get out of it, it helps you pretty much establish your own identity. The problem is, if you don't get out of it, you become a fucking statistic. You become like a goddamn clone of somebody else, and what does that accomplish? Not a goddamn thing. And now you're walking around with like a no face. You're like No Face from Spirited Away. If anyone has seen that movie. A really cool example. And the thing is, you don't have it isn't like you have to stop being friends with those people, even if you guys don't agree on everything. I'll give you an example. I don't think Larry's gonna mind if I use this. When he was talking about his whole experience, about he used to hang out with like a whole bunch of potheads, but he didn't necessarily fall into the same shit those dudes did, but he had no problem hanging out with them. It's that whole thing. There's no problem having friends who have differences. Maybe they don't do everything you do, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you have to avoid them like the plague. You can still hang with them, because if anything else, it reaffirms how strong your resolve is for being you, and that's a good thing. And I think, if I remember right, the written of his story was the fact that one of the dudes decided to pull him out of the way one day and kind of was praising him just for being himself. Being a non-judgmental individual, essentially. Yeah, non-judgmental individual. He was still being himself, but he wasn't judging them just because they were different. That's the kind of shit that you should strive to be. Is that kind of person where you can hang out with other people and your own personal view on things not get shooken just because someone else chose a different lifestyle than you. And at the same time realize that just because they're not doing the same lifestyle as you doesn't make them a worse person than you. That's the kind of shit I like. That's the kind of shit, that's the good thing that can come out of the group mentality, because if you break out of it, you'll become more of an individual. The problem is, if you don't break out of it, as I said, you become a fucking statistic, Mr. No Face, and that's not fun. So yeah, that's essentially my thoughts and opinions on that whole topic. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Life's a game, play to win. And video responses are always welcome, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace. It's like I'm trying out different poses with a fucking peace sign. What am I, fucking crazy? You're damn right. Later, guys.